Thank you, everyone, for coming and attending the webinar Journey of a Gem Hunter. On behalf of the AGS Young title holders, we are excited to have you, and we're excited to have Lauriane Lognay here with us. So at any point in time, if you guys have questions that you want to answer, there should you'll see a little Q&A with bubbles on top of it. So you could write your questions in there at any point in time. However, we will get to the questions at the end of the presentation. So at this point, we'll open up the floor and take it away.
Thanks, Allison. Hi, everyone. I'm going to speak a little bit slower because some people told me that my voice might cut off a bit. So I'll talk a little slow today so everyone can understand me. I'm so glad you could all join us today for my very first webinar with you guys. I'm going to be talking a little bit about me, just so you know who you're listening to if you wanted to complain about the horrible accent afterwards. And I'm going to be talking about different gem hunts and trips I made over the years, the countries I visited, followed by some advices for the must-have instruments and tools to have with you. I'll be elaborating on the risks and what to look out for on those trips. And then I will end my long monologue with the connections we make and the people we meet along the way. This beautiful presentation will come to an end with whatever questions you guys might have, just like Allison said. So keep them close to you, write them down just in case you forget them, and I'll answer them as soon as I'm finished. So a little bit about me. What to say? I was born in Belgium, but lived in Democratic Republic of Congo during most of my childhood. My love for gemstones mostly comes from my grandpa, who worked as a miner in the malachite and copper mines in DRC. I remember we had a beautiful grass green, and wait for it, Cupulus chloroskyte specimen at home, just sitting on the table. And it's a uranium-based mineral. So at the time, we didn't really care about radioactive poisoning. So I had a really fun childhood, as you can imagine. I never really knew the names or any info of the minerals I collected at the time, and never even knew you could make money out of identifying gemstones. So I grew up in Congo, and after the Civil War in '97, we decided we were better off being icicles in Canada. And in Canada, I am today. I ended up studying in arts, followed by jewelry school, and ending with my FGA from GEME a few years ago. I also did a few classes with the GIA to try and better myself and do more courses whenever I can. My love for gemstones only grew, and one day I had the opportunity to start my own colored gemstone business called Rippana in Montreal, Canada. And someone had a huge stock for sale. They were closing shop and asked me if I wanted to buy the stones from them. I was 21 years old, and I had absolutely no idea how businesses worked. So naturally, I said yes 2 days later. From then on, I traveled each year to different places in order to find the rough and cut gemstones I would need for my business. And along the way, I learned so much and made so many contacts and friends. I'm also a writer. I write monthly for magazines and blogs about gemstones and the market in general. I also co-admin a popular group you might know called Gemology for All, and a few of my friends here are admins also on that group, where all my colleagues and we post information and learning material about gemology. The group is open to everyone who wants to learn about gemstones. So here we are today, and I hope this little webinar will be to your liking and that you have learned something today. To start with, I'll tell you some of the countries I visited. So for gem hunt purposes, I include Tanzania, Myanmar, Madagascar, Vietnam, India, United States, Peru, and of course, Canada and Congo. If I had to choose 3 favorite countries to visit for gemstones, I would go with Tanzania, Myanmar, and Vietnam. It's not really particularly in that order, and I choose each of them for very different reasons. So let me start on that. Tanzania, for example, was a rich and diverse place that I loved very much. I have a weak spot, as you can imagine, for any African country. So I'll be a little biased on that one. Visiting the mines like the Tanzanite One mine, the Williamson Diamond mine, the gemstone markets, the ruby and zoisite mines were all experiences I would repeat in a heartbeat. The extraordinary scenery didn't hurt either. The biggest downside, if we can call it that, would be the strict laws in exporting rough and uncut gemstones. For rough tanzanites, bigger than 1 gram, and that's 5 carats, you cannot get them out of the country unless you cut the stone locally. And that is to encourage the economy there. So it's good for them. A lot of the bigger rough you see on the market of tanzanites are either old stock or smuggled rough from Tanzania through Kenya. For rubies, sapphires, emeralds, spinel, any kind of green garnet, the ban on the rough is 2 grams, so 10 carats for that type. The law is more strict for tanzanite and precious gemstones alike. Quartz and the likes, or amethyst, pink quartz, do not have the same restrictions. The same goes for specimens, crystal specimens. So if you buy a crystal specimen of tanzanite, you can go out of the country with it because it's not for cutting. And that's also one way you can find bigger tanzanite outside of Tanzania. Now, what I love about Myanmar, and I have a special picture here to show you, especially in Mogok, were the people I met. So this is a picture of the Ruby Land at the entrance of Mogok. Most of the people you meet there are kind, curious, eager to show you how they live. I went into a river to wash the gravel and sand with them, and we didn't speak 1 word of each other's language. We didn't need to. We just laughed and made hand signs to try and be understood. I won't tell you that what started the communications was me falling into a hole inside the river and then everyone laughing about it. I didn't really care at the time. It broke the ice. It was also there I learned to keep the rough gemstones we found inside our mouths so they don't get lost or stolen. It was a glorious moment of all of us laughing with gems inside our mouths. So I think you can imagine the picture. The biggest downside of Mogok would be the military presence and the unrest inside the country and region. Mogok is an unstable destination and has been for a long time. You have to be prepared to change your itinerary at a moment's notice. I visited a sapphire mine there that had shootings and dead 2 days prior. So you have choices to make, and sometimes they're not the fun ones. So that's piles of sapphires in my sweet bag. Now, Vietnam is a special one. I was planning a trip to Sri Lanka at the time, and 2 days before departure, so 2 days before my departure for Sri Lanka, the hotel I was supposed to be staying at was attacked. A part of it was destroyed in a bomb explosion. Maybe some of you heard about it a little bit before COVID happened. Lives were lost, and some from the gem industry. I still wanted to go because I refused to be controlled by fear. My friends who the hotel belonged to told me not to come because the risk was still there and it was too dangerous. Now, I may not be controlled by fear, but my friends and family often begged me to at least have some common sense. So I listened. Here I was, 2 days before departure, having to find myself a new destination. So weirdly enough, I turned to Facebook and asked around to get some ideas. There I met someone I consider today a friend and set my destination to Vietnam. It was an unexpected trip, but surely one of my most memorable. I met wonderful people, ate tons of food for the price of a bus fare, and found tons of gemstones to elevate my thirst. I visited some pearl farms because there are experts in pearls all over Vietnam. And while in New Bien, we took some bikes into the jungle and drove for a few hours to visit the cobalt spinel mines and small-scale mining. So that's me on the bike, on the dirt bike. I have to tell you, it was the first time ever I rode on the dirt bike. I fell once or twice. We visited some families inside their homes in the middle of nowhere. The gem market was also a great spot to be able to see the diversity of the Vietnam gemstones. So you have aquamarines, ruby, sapphire, spinel, garnet, just to name a few. I would say the biggest downside in Vietnam was that people don't really trust you. So having a guide or a friend with you who knows, who speaks the language and who knows their way around would be your best bet. They are not mean, not at all. They just don't often see strangers and they don't often trust them, especially in Lucian, where almost no stranger ventures. I'm just gonna take a sip of water. Another country I'd like to mention, even if it's not in my top 3, would be Madagascar. I went into Ilakaka in Madagascar, and it was a great trip. I wasn't alone and was with a group of geologists mixed in with gemologists and explorers, auctioneers, and sellers all together. The expedition was organized by Vincent Pardieu, and it was a great experience to share with them. We did have security guards with us for part of the trip, and we knew we were going to remote places, often walking hours under 35 degrees Celsius. But the reward was a great one. We found mines and small villages, we explored, we dug a little bit, we talked to them and saw their lives. We even had the opportunity to go into a 1 meter wide hole, 8 meters deep, into a cheese-like network of tunnels under the earth. And that was a whole mine. That was excellent. I'd say one of the biggest downsides to Ilakaka was that they don't know you. So you don't. So when you want to buy bigger gemstones, bigger rough or faceted, they don't have much to show you. They have to get used to you first before you start showing you the good stuff. Most of the bigger sapphires and gemstones will be reserved for Sri Lankan and known clients. Building relationships with them might take 5 to 10 trips of buying smaller stuff or bigger stuff each time before they consider you a good enough client who they can show the good stuff to. So that was the biggest downside, because you visit the country for the first time and you hope to buy some big rough to bring back home with you, but you won't see a lick of it because everything was already sold or reserved for the clients that they know. I don't think I need to tell you that treating everyone you meet with respect is essential in building lasting relationships. But I am telling it to you because I did come across some travelers that treated the miners and talked to them like they were underneath them. The tactic was simple for those tourists. The miners live because they sell the rough to them. But never forget that we live because they mine it for us. So mutual respect is a huge and important step in building relationships. One big difference that you have when you travel for your stones or buy from someone who travels is that you have a story behind the gem. You not only buy a gemstone, you also buy the story that comes with it. The origin, the events that led to its discovery. That's me with a miner whom I bought a rough from, just to show the client that bought the gemstone from me that it's an actual person. So you also buy the story that comes with it, the origin, the events that led to its discovery. It's a great selling pitch for a jeweler store or any other seller. People today are not simply interested in the gemstone anymore. They want to know more. They want the story behind it. They want to feel like they are part of something bigger. What's also great is that I can choose who I buy from. If the artisanal mines do not respect the workers and human ethics, I will not buy from that mine. And from them on, I will never buy from them again. Trying to be ethical in the gemstone business is a complex subject, and I won't elaborate on it too much, but I'll ask you this. What is ethical for you? Is it the human condition, the environment, the working conditions, the paper trails, or blockchains? We all have slightly different notions of what is ethical for us. For me, the environment and the human condition are the most important, even if I do not have the paper trail inside the small mining village, I still saw the human, and I heard the story behind that gem. And that's enough for me and for most of my clients. Buying from a small scale mine directly from the miner who worked for it, to me, is encouraging the right people. We cannot have 100% ethical gemstones, pretty much like anything big scale, like the clothes industry. We can only choose and buy to the best of our knowledge. Now to the interesting part, the instruments needed on the field. One thing I want to make clear, the closer you are to the source, to the mine, to the gem market, to the more imitations, synthetics you will see. The miners will test you. They will show you bad quality rough, fakes, synthetics, and gemstones they'll try to get rid of. They will see if you have experience or not. They will test the waters with you. If you do not have minimal knowledge of gemstones, do not attempt to buy at mines or markets. Stick with your suppliers. It's a friendly advice. I had so many clients tell me they went into X country, bought a bunch of gemstones from friendly miners, and turning out to be all fakes or treated to hell. One time at a gem market in Mogok, and I'll show you how the gem market there is, so you can see you're totally circled by people on all sides. I think I said no to hundreds of gems in the first 2 hours before they started showing me the good stuff. They all know each other. They all know what each other has. So when you ask for something specific, they'll know where to find it most of the time. But they will try and show you imitations or bad quality first. And even then, knowing how much you want to buy the gemstone at is really important. You never want to overpay. In the mines or gem markets, it's a game of how much you are willing to pay and how much the miner is willing to sell it to you. They already know the lowest they will sell it at. They know their prices, but we'll always ask double or triple or even 5 times the price to test the waters with you. What you pay is up to you and how much you want that gem. If any one of you plays poker, it will come in handy. Being overly excited for a gem guarantees they will try and sell it more expensive. Okay, so the instruments. I hate to be Captain Obvious, but the very first item any decent jeweler or gemologist should have in their bag is a loop or a dark field. Dark field is this, for those who don't know what it looks like. These items are paramount to your successful buy. If you have your eyes, hands, loop, you can discern natural inclusions from synthetics or imitations. Check if the rough in your hands is cold or warm. Check the weight of the stone in your hands, and with your eyes, observe the structure of the rough or the dispersion and brilliance of your gem. Any small detail can be crucial clue to help you determine the identity of a gem you plan to buy. And when you get the rough or cut gem in your hands, the first few seconds, you will already have an idea of the identity of the stone. Of course, the seller can tell you what it is, but learn to trust your knowledge and instincts first. I had a friend buy what looked like a nice little aquamarine crystal, but upon closer inspection, it was the wrong crystal shape. It turned out that the $5 aquamarine was a rare Jérémy Gévit, perfectly formed and worth more than $200. It rarely turns out that way. Almost never. Most of the time, your $5 aquamarine will be a piece of blue glass worth $0. The second object, and I debated a lot on that one, would be small baggies. Yes, you need baggies so you don't find yourself with gems you don't remember how much you paid for, or from where, or what treatment. You might have an excellent memory, but everyone in the craziness of a gemstone market can lose a few details along the way. At the end of each day, I look at the notes I took on my phone and write down every gemstone detail I know on each baggie. The name, the price I bought it at, the village or the mine it's from, the treatments, the identity of the gem, of course. The third object would be a cell phone or a smartphone. It's an obvious tool to have with you, but most importantly, In your cell phone, you can always put important phone numbers, your contact or guide in that country, the address of your hotel or the place you're staying at, the police phone number, your shipping information hidden in folders, never in the view of anyone who opens it, and your itinerary. It's important never to divulge your full itinerary to anyone you don't trust 100%, but to always have someone at home with the information in case your gem hunting trip turns sour, because it can happen. Being prepared for the worst is your best bet for any gem hunt. Now, the ones that are not as important to some people, but that some cannot do without, would be the gem cloth and a pair of tweezers, like these. For myself, I always bring my own tweezers because it makes a difference in the handling of the gems, and I feel more comfortable with them. The claws will be just helpful in case you have a hard time discerning fingerprint from fingerprint inclusions. A really important one would be snacks and water. Personally, shopping while hungry is the absolute worst. I don't know when I'll see a place to eat. I don't know if the food will be edible. I don't know when the next drinkable water will be. I always have snacks with me and a bottle of water. It also helps to have some small gifts and candies for some village children we'll meet along the way, because they will follow you for fun, because you are a stranger. A light source. Depending on where you are planning to go, be it in the mines or only in the gem markets, a light will always be the strongest tools to have. I'll always carry a headlight with me in case I have to go inside a mine, and to have my two hands available. And I always carry a small portable one with 3 types of lighting for when I visit markets: a UV light, daylight, and incandescent light. It's useful to have in case you want to look at the color change in an alexandrite or in a stone, the asterism on a sapphire, or the cat's eye in a chrysoberyl. If you are planning on buying rough, the light will be useful to look inside the rough for dangerous inclusions like fissures, or to see if you can spot any suspicious inclusions. I have different sizes of flashlights, as you can see, with me at all times. And the more important than flashlight, batteries. Please bring the batteries with you, because one time I went to a trip, I didn't check any of the batteries on any of my tools and had a few surprises along the way. Frustrating. All the other instruments, I count them as bonus. If you take too much with you, you won't be able to adequately buy the quantities you need. You might not have a flat surface to take the time to test every gemstone. And most of them you can do in your own room at the end of the day at the hotel. I'd say with the shape of the rough, the clues, the dark field, and the observation experience you'll build along the way, you will already have a good idea of what you are buying and what you have in your hands. I'll be the one to say it. We all have been fooled in the past at least once. It happens, it sucks. We win some, we lose some, that's okay. That's a learning experience. It's not shameful. I always keep my fakes once back home to study them and learn from them, because fakes are becoming more and more elaborate as they learn how to fool us and what we look out for. They are great learning material as long as you didn't sell your house to buy it. So the most important tools, I would say a guide or friend, loop and dark field, tweezers, gem claws, baggies, a pen, of course, and a phone, light source. And I would say in the bonus category of the instruments, always having a small scale with you at the hotel room is cool. Having your spectroscope with you at all times. I even have a portable polariscope with me to test some gems. And of course, some other tools like the dichroscope, the things to tell the size of your gem. So all of those are bonuses to have, but you can bring with you, just not at the market. What to look out for and the risks we take. Okay, you do not have to go down a 1 meter wide hole into the ground or a mine that goes 200 meters down when you travel to buy gems. You don't have to. But some of you will do it. And to those crazies, I ask, do you have your headlights? Now, more seriously, traveling around to buy gems sounds like a lot of fun and adventure, and it often really is. But the smaller part that we don't talk about are the real dangers that we put ourselves into. I've spoken to a lot of travelers. My friends mostly come from around the world. And let me tell you that some of the gems you buy have a lot of sweat and tears, manly tears, man. For example, I was once followed all the way from a gem market and into my hotel. They were waiting for me to be alone and following me not so discreetly until they even entered the elevator with me. What I did was kept my cool, pressed the wrong floor, waited for them to get out, sprinted down the stairs and back to the main lobby. There, I contacted someone from the hotel and stayed until I saw them get out. That was in Tanzania. I mentioned it once before, but there was also a shooting at one of the mines I was visiting in Myanmar. It's always a risk with countries divided by conflict. Some artisanal mines are great, and some are controlled by gangs who keep their miners drugged up and dependent. Ending up in one in Tanzania was not a pleasant experience. That's also a bonus when you know someone in that country. You do not go to these places. Getting your stuff stolen can also happen. One thing to always remind yourself is no matter how friendly everyone is, they will almost always place their survival before yours. That doesn't mean you won't find great friends who will prove me wrong, and I'm hoping to be wrong. But I'm saying this so if you ever travel anywhere in the world, you keep your bags closed with your eyes on them at all times, especially since buying gems from the miners and then the small markets will require cash. They won't accept your American Express in the Mandinakapa village and mine in Ilakaka in Madagascar. Trust me on this. Just in case I get robbed, I never bring all my cash at once on me. I leave a part of it in the hotel and divide what I have on me in different places. So I'll know I have 200 in my right pocket, 300 in my left pocket, and maybe 500 hidden in a bag on my stomach. Even one time, I put some cash into my socks. They won't go through your socks when they try and steal from you. Preparing yourself for the worst and ending up having a great trip is way better than not having prepared at all and having a bad experience. It's also why I mentioned earlier to have written numbers on paper of the police of the place you are staying at in case your cell phone gets stolen. But it's not all bad. It's just I prefer you guys to be prepared for any gem trip with the worst possible scenario and end up having a wonderful trip. The connections that we make. I would love to say that the gemstones we find and buy are the best and most important part of a gem hunting trip, but that would be a lie. The connections we make, the friends we make along the way, the memories we take with us are the most important part. And I'm not even saying that in a cheesy kind of way. I honestly mean it. The only difference between a successful gem hunting trip and a total failure is the people you meet and the connections you make during the trip. On this beautiful note, guys, I'm done with the presentation and would be delighted to answer any questions you might have for me.
Let's see if there are any. So there are actually none in the chat.
Thanks for listening to me.
Well, I have a pretty random question. So while you were traveling, you kept gems in your mouth to keep them safe. What was that like, and why, out of all places, your mouth?
So that's why I mentioned the baggies, because one of my first gem trips was in Myanmar, Mogok, and I kept finding gemstones into the river. You know, the river where I fell into a hole.
Oh.
I didn't have any baggies with me, and I kept finding stones. So where do you put them? And you don't want them to get stolen. You don't put them in your hand in case you fall again.
Right.
And all the women around me, because there were only women around me mining into the river, placed the gems inside their mouths. And they told me it's the easiest way not to get them stolen and not to get them lost.
Right.
So I was like, why not? Why not do like them? So I put every stone in my mouth.
Very cool. I feel like I would never think of that. But yes, when you're in that scenario.
But I do say, bring the baggies. Don't put them all in your mouth.
Yes, and I'm sure they're easier to open when you're not in the water.
Of course.
So we do have a question. So what is your favorite stone from your travels, and have you kept many, for your own collection? Good
I
question.
have kept many stones from my own personal collection, most of them rough. As you can imagine, I prefer rough gems to faceted gems. So I kept a lot of crystal specimens and rare gems that you don't often find. Of course, like giant crystal mackerel of spinel, a translucent specimen of Amazonite that you never see, and some giant crystal of aquamarine, tourmaline, all the sorts. So I do keep a lot of gems. What was the first part of the question?
What is your favorite stone from your travels?
That is a hard one. I would say probably spinel.
I like
Because of all the colors, it shines brighter, you have less inclusions, and I can find them almost in every country I visit. So it's always a pleasure to see the differences in tones and colors for each country.
absolutely. And we have another question. Let's see. What was the worst you have been burned with a fake, and where was it?
So I think the worst I've been burned with was in Madagascar about in 2019. So even with all the years of experience, I still get burned sometimes. And what they did was imitate the shape. So they imitated the shape of a rough sapphire, but it was a synthetic. And since the outside was frozen, I couldn't see inside it. So I took a gamble. And most of the time, that's what you do when you buy gems inside villages. You take a gamble. So I bought a big sapphire rough, and it ended up being a synthetic. I still kept the thing. It's fun to see.
And it's good for, like you say, your memories.
Of course, and to remind myself never to happen again.
Right. Be extra careful. And then we do have another one. I like this question. Out of all the places you visited, for a beginner traveler, for going on your first gem hunt, where would you suggest to go, and where have you found the people the most welcoming and friendliest?
Well, it does depend on where you are at, because I would say, let's say for a Canadian, I would say go to the United States to start. There are some small mines you can go to in Montana sapphires, the Arkansas diamond mine that you can go to, and it's easy, simple, and you know what you will find inside the mines. But if you already are in the United States, I would say you can mine yourself at some places in Canada also. I would say Africa is not for the beginners, because you have a lot of gems that, as I said, the closer you are to the mines, the closer you are to imitations and synthetics. So you really have to have minimal knowledge of gemstones, or you try to buy from people that you trust and you know. As for the contacts, most of the time I go to conferences, ICA conferences, AGTA conferences, Tucson Gem Show, and I meet people there, and I learn where they're from, make friends with them. As I said, the contacts you make while you travel. So I went to the conferences, made friends, and some of them invited me to their countries. And I said, okay, I'm taking you on that word and I'm coming.
Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, and you better be ready for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure starting in the US and not having that language barrier is definitely helpful when first starting.
Yes, and you can, and let's say you mine for some small sapphires, you can already see the shape they are, what color they are, how they shine compared to the gravel or the sand. You can practice yourself, because I'll tell you, experience is the best tool to use. When you have your eyes, when you have the loop, it doesn't mean anything if you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah, with anything, experience comes knowledge, for sure.
Practice for yourself. And the US has a lot of different mines and a lot of different gemstones. So for sure, any beginner can have a lot of fun trying to discover the different gems.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think that's it for questions, but this entire presentation will be housed on the AGS website. So for anyone that wants to go back and rewatch it or send it to a friend, anyone that has questions, we could always you could always contact either AGS or Lauriane herself directly. But thank you so much. This was so interesting. I know personally, I've been working in the industry for probably 8 years now, and I've never, gone on a gem hunt. I've never thought of it. Always would be so interesting, but it's just, it was great to hear about. So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to me, everyone. Thank you and have a great day.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.